right. Hey, Vikings fans, welcome in to another episode of the Skol Hop. Kind of got some new digs here.
Yeah, the new look Skol Hop.
What do you think?
I love it.
I like it too.
It's going to throw me off if we don't introduce ourselves, though.
We do need to introduce ourselves. I'm Evan.
And I'm Austin.
And we're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer, and we like talking about the Vikings.
We do. And Evan, you brought the beer tonight.
I did. This is a continuation of the beer series that we started a few weeks ago on our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So No Coast Brewing is based out of Oskaloosa, Iowa. And they have at least available to us at our local grocery store, which is not in Oskaloosa, Iowa.
Nope.
We have 3 different No Coast Nitro beers. So just a few weeks ago, episode 30, I believe it was, we tried No Coast's Cookies and Cream Nitro.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really good. We both would agree that it's not something that we would naturally gravitate towards.
Yeah, I mean...
But it was good.
Yeah. Maybe an every once in a while thing, but
yeah,
I'd never really, divin in the pool. Never really dived into the pool of nitro beers. So
yeah. So here we are trying number 2 in the series.
In our series, it's not like they have them numbered or anything.
Yeah. We're trying the second one of the nitros that we have available to us, and it's the coffee stout. So it is a cold brew coffee milk stout, 5%.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned how to pour a nitro beer on the last episode. You have to tip it 3 times. I'm not going to do it now because this one's been opened and it would drip everywhere. But then you pour it hard. Oh, and I just splashed everywhere.
Oh, that's all right.
But that's okay.
No big deal. We need to get a roll of paper towels just to have.
Yeah, we'll get some. But anyways, that's how you do it, and it's been a learning experience pouring and drinking these nitro beers, but they're good, and I like them.
Absolutely, I agree.
First impressions on this one so far?
Yeah, so have we mentioned the one that we tried a few weeks ago? So if you're not a regular Skol Hopper, we tried the Cookies and Cream a few weeks ago. Tonight, if you just said this, I'm sorry, I was kind of I was really looking to see if they only had 3 on their website, and I couldn't find it at all. So this is the coffee nitro. What is it actually called? Am I rehashing something you just said? The cold brew coffee.
I did say it. Yep. That's all right. And
then the next one in our series, which may or may not be next week, it is the s'mores.
S'mores, yep.
Yeah.
So Cookies and Cream 2 weeks ago. We've got the coffee today, and then we'll try the s'mores sometime soon, hopefully.
Yeah. All right, ready? Just a good old. Let's really do this. Although.
We have
we
have some electronics under us.
All right,
ready?
Skol. It's just a hollow sound. I don't know. We've had so many good ones, and I think it's all in my head at this point.
It's okay. That one wasn't bad. The first one we did tonight was worse.
So yeah, on the TikTok.
Yeah,
that was one of the poorer ones we've had before.
But that's all right.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll live. We'll be here for more episodes.
Yes, we will.
So, episode 32.
Yeah.
We got Toby Gerhart.
He was a good one.
He was.
Short-lived, but
good. I feel like, when a team has Adrian Peterson and drafts you at his position in the second round, puts a lot of pressure, and then it's Adrian Peterson. You're not going to get a bunch of opportunity to get on the field. And if you ever do anything wrong, it's just like super magnified. So I think he got a bad rap, and then I think he went to the Jaguars after the Vikings, and he never really turned into the Heisman level running back he was in college. But yeah, Toby Gerhart, I liked him. Currently, Ty Chandler,
yes,
who I think even with the Aaron Jones signing, we're still looking at Ty Chandler as RB1. Maybe like RB1A or RB1B. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we could theoretically have another little 2-headed monster kind of thing with Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler.
Yeah.
That remains to be seen, but could be.
And then how can we forget the GOAT, the Mr. Wizinator himself, Ontario Smith.
Good old Ontario Smith.
Yeah.
Always got to check that bag before you get on the flight there, buddy.
Literally.
So those are some memorable number 32s.
Yeah. Yeah, you said you had one up your sleeve.
I do. So I I went to my favorite Daily Norseman series of articles where they kind of take the Vikings by the numbers and list out all the Vikings to wear different numbers. And I started looking through this list, and you can probably look over my shoulder here and see it. Of course, Ontario Smith, Toby Gerhart on the list. But as I'm looking at the rest of it, I'm like, I don't really know any of these other names. So I scrolled down, and I came across this poll that they had.
All right.
Who is the greatest Viking to wear the number 32?
And we're obviously timeline biased because we weren't alive for the first 30 years of Vikings existence, and then even then we needed another 10 years to really wake up, right?
Yeah, oh for sure. Yep. I mean, we're really in the peak years of our fanhood now.
Yeah, right now, yeah. For
sure. Anyways, Toby Gerhart received 28% of the vote.
Yeah.
Which is respectable.
Yeah.
26% of the vote went to Amp Lee, who played from 1994 to 1996. I was a child.
Yeah, we were alive then.
Kindergarten-ish. Don't remember him at all. But 46% of the vote went to Oscar Reed.
Oscar Reed.
Played from 1968 to 1974. Where do you think Oscar Reed sits in the echelon of Vikings running backs all time?
I'm going to be honest
top
with you.
50, top 40, top 30, top 20, top 10? Where do you think he lands?
I don't know that I've heard his name before you just read it.
I hadn't either. I just want you to make a guess.
I mean, I could tell you top 5 is probably AP.
Yep.
Dalvin's probably in there. Obviously, Robert Smith.
He's number 2 in terms of yards. We'll go with yards as the key stat.
Okay. Well, if it's
Career
just yards, then I'm not sure. But as far as overall best, it's got to be AP, Robert Smith, Dalvin.
Yep, those are the top 3.
Mm-hmm. And then from there, you got a lot of guys who are good, but So what's the stat here? What's the number?
You didn't take a guess. Which 10, 20, 30, 40, 50? It's one of those.
It's got to be a shock value, because otherwise you wouldn't bring. If he was the worst ever. He's either top 10 or the worst ever. That's why you would bring it up, right?
He's not top 10.
Is he the worst ever? Does
He's
he have
the worst
one
ever.
rushing?
No.
I don't know. Is he 11?
No.
All right. Lay it on me.
He's top 20.
All right.
He's number 19 all time.
Okay.
In rushing history. And the Vikings have had a lot of running backs. I mean, this list.
Well, is that running backs or is that all people with rushing yards in Vikings history?
It's career rushing leaders.
Because even Kirk Cousins is going to be on that list.
I suppose you're right.
Anybody who's got CJ Ham, who's a fullback and isn't known for being a rusher, he's going to be on that list.
All of these players in the top 30 are running backs.
Yeah, and not to diminish, the names on that list, but yeah.
I was surprised. He was a decent running back. Oh, I misspoke. Dante Culpepper, number 14 all time.
That's
Fran Tarkenton, number 13.
Well, Fran was
all over the place.
The OG Mike Vick in terms of running around and extending plays.
Correct. Those are the only 2 quarterbacks in the top 30, though. That's interesting.
Huh.
Anyways, there you go. Oscar Reed.
All right. Now you know. Now you know.
Arguably the best number 32.
I mean, if he's got to have the most rushing yards of the 3 names we mentioned: Ty Chandler, Gerhart, and Ontario Smith. So the 4 guys. Ontario, he probably has something I'd be surprised if he had any more than 1,000. I think he only played for the team for 2 parts of 2 seasons.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But that was in the early 2000s. That was when that YouTube video you just showed me was super popular about drinking beer and stuff.
Beer is good. Let's go drink some beer.
Well, we are right now. All right, man. I feel like we're warming up into the episode here.
Warming up into this new set, too.
New set, new episode. I feel like we're off a little bit. So sorry, listeners, if we sound off. We're still getting used to everything. Our old set, we were pretty set in it. We had 20-plus episodes in that set.
We're wading in, but we'll be in the deep end before too long.
Yeah, we're getting it. All right, since our last episode, just a week ago, we record on Mondays now. So there's been some things, not only for the Vikings, but in the NFL overall. A big thing is the Vikings signed the guy who at the moment is sitting in the QB1 spot. And we kind of talked about him a little bit last week as a possibility, but Sam Darnold is officially a Vikings quarterback as of right now.
Yes, he is.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's interesting that Kwesi very publicly and very directly stated that he doesn't believe in bridge quarterbacks, and Sam Darnold is not a bridge quarterback. But it's pretty obvious that that's what he is. And we'll talk, I'm sure, about, and I see it on our notes here, we'll talk about the trade for some draft picks with the Texans later on.
Oh, yeah.
But if he truly believes that there's no such thing as a bridge quarterback, and he believes that Sam Darnold is the bona fide starter week one, he's not holding his cards very close to his chest, so to speak. So I believe in bridge quarterbacks. I think that's why Sam Darnold was brought in. I don't have high hopes for him being with the team long term.
As far as past this coming season?
Correct. And I mean, he could be traded before that too. I think $10 million is a little much to cut a guy and just eat that. Unless he's just terrible and isn't a good locker room guy. But I've never heard anything bad about Sam Darnold.
Yeah, honestly,
that way.
Yeah, so, I think we've never really, I can't think of a time where Sam Darnold's been in the news negatively outside of like performance. Like I can't think of, oh yeah, remember that time he was arrested? Like I can't think of anything bad. So he seems like a stand-up dude.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's pretty obvious to me what's going on with him. I'm sure it's obvious to him. I'm sure it's obvious to everyone else in the organization. And I'm sure it's even obvious to Drake May or JJ McCarthy or Jaden Daniels or whoever the Vikings
KOC.
Yeah, whoever the Vikings
the quarterbacks, but
going after in the draft too. Well, I think these young guys probably see it too. Like, oh yeah, like I know JJ McCarthy, he's been in the news because the Vikings scheduled a private workout with him.
Yeah, that was just today. Yeah,
I know they've had an interview that JJ McCarthy really gushed about with the media. He really liked meeting with Kwesi and KOC. So I don't know. I think everybody kind of sees through this facade of, oh, there's no such thing as a bridge quarterback. That's what Sam Darnold is. At $10 million, it is what it is. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I kind of think this is the move Kwesi makes this year because of what happened with Kirk last year. So obviously it's a strategy. I don't think it's any secret. Everybody who follows the NFL and even slightly thinks of the Vikings knows Vikings are going to do everything they can to get a rookie quarterback. I think Sam Darnold, while not by any means a Pro Bowler or above average quarterback, I mean, at this point, he's only shown that he's a guy that gets benched in his career. But he's also had a little bit of a respite since being a full-fledged starter. I think quarterbacks leave San Francisco better quarterbacks than they were when they, entered San Francisco. I think, Shanahan and all of their coaching staff are really good at developing quarterbacks specifically. I mean, not to diminish Brock Purdy as a quarterback and a person. Maybe he would have flourished into what he is now in any other team. But I think Shanahan has had a lot to do with that.
For sure, I think.
So just speculating, you got to imagine Sam Darnold's a better quarterback after having been in San Francisco for a year than he was before then. I think genuinely, I really think the Vikings are heading into the season, regardless of what they do in the draft. They're at least heading into training camp. Sam Darnold is QB1. First day of training camp, Sam Darnold will be taking QB1 snaps. He will be on the first depth chart. He'll be listed as the first starting quarterback. Even if the Vikings were to somehow get the first overall pick, which they won't, but even if they were to get the first overall pick and draft the guy, Caleb Williams or anybody, like whoever they draft is automatically listed quarterback 2 heading into training camp. And I think that takes a little bit of a pressure off of that first round pick quarterback, but also lights a fire under that quarterback as well. It's just not if he throws a pick on his first pass in practice, he's not in danger of losing the starting job that he was pretty quickly put into. So I think Sam Darnold gives you a little bit of a buffer, and if he has to start the first couple of games, I don't think that's the end of the world. Unless we're also hearing, hey, this rookie is garbage, whoever it is.
Yeah.
So I like the move. I'm not saying, hey, Sam Darnold's going to lead the Vikings to the Super Bowl, because I think the ceiling is, maybe something that Baker Mayfield did with the Bucs last year, and that's a high ceiling. I'm not saying Sam Darnold's going to do that, but
he re-signed for 3 years and
$100 million,
pretty hefty contract.
Yeah, so I think it's just you sign Sam Darnold now while you can, and maybe overpay a little bit, which $10 million. I mean, that's in this salary cap, that's almost nothing for a guy that could start at quarterback for your team. You overpay a little bit in March so that you're not kicking yourself because you have to hurry up and start Jaron Hall or start a Josh Dobbs who's been on your team for 5 days because guys are injured and unexpected things happened.
So my question to you is, do you think this is the more proactive Josh Dobbs move rather than the reactive actual Josh Dobbs move that we saw in October or whatever it was this last season?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. This is kind of hedging your bet. That's kind of how I see this Sam Darnold signing. Yes, I think everybody in the world knows, like I said earlier, the Vikings are going to draft a quarterback, or at least try their hardest to draft a quarterback really high, with the intention of that guy being the long-term starter for many, many years. And maybe I'm describing a bridge quarterback, quote unquote, but at least this gives you a little bit of insurance in case the rookie doesn't pan out. Then you have a guy that at least has started some games and has shown you can pull up a highlight reel of Sam Darnold. Yeah, it might only be a minute, but you can pull up some good plays. And I mean, look at Nick Mullins with JJ last year. With a sufficient offensive line and weapons, I mean, anybody can do something. I'm not saying Sam Darnold's going to be a Pro Bowler or MVP or win many games, but he's better than a 5th-round rookie or the guy that the Cardinals let go. He's at least an option that you're glad that you signed now rather than kicking yourself for not signing later.
Well, and whoever the guy is, I agree with you. I think Sam Darnold is probably the day one starter, and then what happens from there will remain to be seen. Mm-hmm. But moving down our list on free agent signings here in the last week and a half-ish, and we already kind of mentioned his name when we were talking about episode 32 and Ty Chandler. The compliment to Ty Chandler could be very well Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
And I think having a guy like him and having Ty Chandler, who now has some significant starting experience, those two could be kind of that double-headed monster that we've needed for a while, and that Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison were for a while, until Dalvin left and Alexander Mattison kind of elevated to that RB1 role. So I like that signing a lot. I think I like the signing the most because it really pissed off Packers fans.
They were very upset. Who was it? Tom Grassi's video about losing to the Vikings. That was comedy gold. That was hilarious.
And yes, just anything that makes Packers fans mad makes me really happy.
Yeah.
So that was good. But it was also good that the Vikings got a really good running back.
If healthy.
He's definitely had some injury concerns, and he's getting older. Definitely hitting kind of the end of the road for a typical running back.
Yeah. If you're a running back and you turn 30, you may as well turn 80. I mean, just even look at Adrian Peterson, look at the top of the top guys, Derrick Henry. Once they hit that age, it's a position that they get beat down on every single play,
and their production just plummets.
Yeah, even if they're a guy that's not starting, they're still in practice getting hit just as much. It's just not when they're in the money time, in games. So that's why I have that mentality of # don't pay running backs, because second contract running backs have a lot of miles on them. They're older. It's also probably one of the, outside of cornerback, maybe one of the more like demanding of physical abilities, like speed and agility and stuff. Except for corner, like not everybody is gunning you down on every single play. Running backs are getting hit on every single play, even if it's a pass play, because they're probably blocking or going out for a pass and somebody's going to touch them. Like it's a demanding position, and that's why 30 seems to be just that retirement age for running backs. And
yep,
is Aaron Jones gonna be 30 by the time the season starts? He's either 29 or 30 at this point,
I don't know,
which is close enough. But to your point, you mentioned recently, I think his last 5 games, he was one of the better producing running backs in football. I think he was a big part of the Packers playoff run, on top of Jordan Love, figuring something out.
He'll turn 30 on December 2nd.
Okay.
Year.
So he's 29 right now. Towards the end of the season, he'll be 30. Yeah, it's just, I like the deal. I sound like I don't like it. I do like the deal. 1 year, I'm pretty sure it's like $7 million, maybe a little bit more or less, depending on incentives and non-guarantees. But $7 million for a guy that, I mean, you could probably say is RB1, and I don't think you're going to get much pushback. But the coaches also gush over Ty Chandler in a way that they never gushed over Alex Madison, who Alex signed with the Raiders, so good for him.
Yep. Got a little like triangle of trades going on there that Josh Jacobs came to the Packers from the Raiders.
Yep.
Aaron Jones went to the Vikings from the Packers, and Alexander Madison went to the Raiders from the Vikings.
Yeah, and I think every team feels a little good about that move, except for maybe the Packers hate that Jones went to the Vikings. Yeah. And I mean, Josh Jacobs, he's a really good running back. So the Raiders fans are probably not super happy they lost him either. But I don't know. As a Vikings fan, I'm good with it. We'll see how it pans out.
I think the Vikings are the big winners.
They seem to be, at least for this season.
Thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens long term, but
yeah. We can probably like spitfire through some of these other signings and stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Brandon Powell and Trent Sherfield. I like the Brandon Powell signing, bringing him back. And further down our list, when we get to departures, KJ Osborne has left, and he's signed with the Patriots now.
Yep, which means Brandon Powell, he's your penciled-in wide receiver 3 right now.
He's effectively number 3 behind JJ and Jordan Addison, and I think that's a wonderful move for the Vikings, and I think for Brandon Powell too. And I think he proved that he's the guy. He had that game winner against one of his former teams, right?
The Falcons, yeah, in that crazy Josh Dobbs
game. Yep. And I don't know much about Trent Sherfield, but I mean, he seems fairly cheap and could be some good depth there at that position.
If you scroll down to some of the Skol Hops TikTok videos, we have a video highlight of me reacting to Trent Sherfield catching like a toe tapping behind the end zone, like back of the end zone, falling down touchdown catch.
Oh, really?
This past year. So
we'll link that in the description for this episode.
Once I saw they signed him, that's the first thing I thought of. I think Trent Sherfield, this is his 5th team in 5 years. I've heard decent things about him being apparently a decent special teams player, and then obviously he'll get in a few plays a game here and there on wide receiver. Other than that, I don't really know anything about him. But at this point, especially if you remember me last year saying the loss of Adam Thielen really sucks, but it's lessened because TJ Hawkinson is really going to turn into that third wide receiver threat option, even though TJ Hawkinson's obviously a tight end. He was like that third target, especially, behind JJ, Jordan Addison, and then TJ. TJ has some question marks in the beginning of the season. Yep. So that wide receiver 3 role is going to be even more important for the Vikings this coming season than it really has been the last few years. Definitely the last 2 with TJ Hawkinson, because you're not getting... Yeah, they've got some decent backup tight ends, but you're not getting that major receiving threat from the tight end position. So Brandon Powell has a chance to do something KJ Osborne never really did, which was solidify that third wide receiver role. And maybe they draft a guy and free agency still not done. So you never know. I expect to see more names in that wide receiver room before cut down day for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, continuing with offensive players and on the tight end thread with TJ, there's obviously the question mark of if he will be healthy or not for the start of the season. And chances are he probably won't be.
Yeah, I've heard as much as like the first half of the season, he might not really be there, which... That'd be crazy. That would suck, but get better.
The Vikings have signed Johnny Munt, who was on the roster last year. Was this his first year, second year? I can't remember.
But he was definitely on the team last year, maybe the year before. But they signed him. They previously already signed Nick Muse.
Yep.
And they still have Josh Oliver. So, I mean, you're really solidifying that tight end room in a year where you're highest paid tight end in the league. Your tight end one is injured, so you want to have some consistency and some on fire production from the guys that are in there. And it kind of is nice to see that the Vikings are doubling down on the guys that are there, which means they're confident in those guys, other than like, oh crap, we're losing our main guy, we need to find somebody big to fill that role. They seem at this point, before end of free agency, before the draft, they seem to be okay with rolling it back with the guys that they still have in waiting for TJ to come back.
Johnny Munt, second year this past year with the Vikings, the previous 5 seasons with the Rams.
Yeah, and he came over. He was one of KOC's first, or one of the first free agents to sign after KOC got hired.
Yep. So skipping down our list here a little bit, another former Ram, now Viking, that just signed, an hour and a half ago before we started recording. Jonah Williams had 49 tackles last year, 2 sacks for the Rams. Has officially signed with the Vikings today. Yeah,
and a guy that he's been playing alongside Aaron Donald his whole career, who just retired. He'll be a Hall of Famer in 2 seconds,
Yes, he will.
But Jonah Williams, I don't know too much about him. It could be this year's version of Dean Lowry, or it could be a diamond in the rough. I think Kwesi likes to find guys that he can quote unquote buy low on, and maybe sell high or reap the benefits of buying low and then a guy flourishing. Just knowing he had been with KOC on the same team for a few years, there's that familiarity, and that familiarity wasn't enough for KOC to be like, no, I don't want him. If anything, it said, yeah, bring him in. We kind of skipped over Dan Feeney, center guard. I think that's kind of a joke of a signing and kind of a slap in the face to Dalton Reisner.
A little handlebar mustache, mullet kind of guy.
Dan Feeney, he'll be with the Vikings at most this 1 year, and then he'll probably bounce around another few years. I'm guessing he has a good agent. I don't think he's a very good player. I think he's still rolling off some steam that he had coming into the league out of the draft. I don't think this may be the last time we say his name on the podcast, unless he makes his way into a game and really F's something up. That's my harsh opinion on him. I'm sure he's a good dude. Hopefully he's a good dude, but yeah.
Interesting. A couple other quick hitting ones. I think we mentioned this last week, perhaps. I don't know if we did or not for sure, but Harrison Smith restructured his contract.
Yep.
That's awesome. He is arguably the greatest Viking of our era. I think he's entering his 13th season.
This will be 13, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, which is just kind of unheard of in today's league. And the fact that he's just continued to restructure, take pay cuts, do whatever it takes to stick with the Vikings.
I get the feeling this dude just loves being a Viking. Because he has been through, I think his rookie year was Leslie Frazier as a coach. And then obviously we went through all of Mike Zimmer, and now we're a couple years into KOC. He has been with this team since Winter Park. He has been with this team since the Metrodome. He has been with this team since before the Vikings switched their uniforms to their current iteration. Pretty sure his rookie year was Adrian Peterson's 2,000-yard rushing year. That tells me, and if Harrison Smith had been a free agent, and I know safeties have kind of big name safeties they're still on the market. So it's not like he would have broken the bank this year. If he would have hit free agency and signed with somebody else, he probably would have gotten more than $9 million.
Yeah.
And I don't know him, but the marketing team seems to like throwing his name and face and voice out there, and he's only ever been entertaining to watch. If anything, he kind of seems like a chilled, laid-back guy, not a loud, rah-rah guy. That seems to be like a Josh Metellus type guy on the defense. But Harrison Smith seems to love being a Viking, because look at his rookie year, just the state of the franchise to now the state of the franchise. They've been playing in a different stadium, like different coaches, different everything, and he's still here. That just tells me he loves being a Viking, and I love that. He is the new Adam Thielen.
He's the epitome of being a Viking player.
Yeah.
And probably arguably one of the best in our era of fanhood. So
it would be really cool to like talk to him and just get his mindset of like, I guarantee he's had better opportunities elsewhere. Not even money, but I guarantee he's had better opportunities to win more.
So open invitation, Harrison Smith, if you're out there, I'm sure you'd have better opportunities to go on podcasts. But if you want to come sit and have a beer with us right here.
If you even drink, I don't even know if you do, but
we'd have whatever you want. Yeah. If you want pine floats, if you want a toothpick and water, we'll have. I'm just kidding.
That's fine.
That's a really terrible joke. My grandpa used to tell me that all the time.
Interesting.
Pine floats, toothpick and water.
Okay.
No, we'll have whatever you want. If you want A&W root beer, or
I'm not a root beer guy.
I know you're not. Anyways, Harrison Smith, open invitation. You hit us up.
Yeah.
And
we will hit you up. There's no way you're going to hit us.
Well, I mean, you never know.
We're fans. I'd love to get behind the mentality of why you keep committing to the Vikings. And I like that. So, yeah, I'd love to hear that story.
We're going to clip this out and send it to him.
Let's do it.
See what happens. All right. That'll be a banner day in the Skol Hop.
Yep.
That'd be fun. Now we can really quick hit some other ones. Jonathan Bullard was re-signed. He's one of those kind of just keepers from the previous roster. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a good signing. Jerry Tillery was signed for a year, just under $2 million, I guess.
Former first-round pick. He could be another guy that the Kwesi's either buying low, or it's another Dean Lowry type deal where it's just.
And then I don't think our former kicker has officially left yet.
No, he's a free agent.
But he's on the free agency market, and I don't think we'll re-sign him. So John Parker Romo has been brought in. XFL kicker from last year allegedly hit a 73-yarder or something, probably with the wind helping.
Yeah, maybe, but still, you could give me 1,000-mile-an-hour wind behind my back, and I still wouldn't hit a 20-yard field goal. I probably couldn't hit a 5-yard field goal.
So anyways, we've got at least a kicker and probably at least one more coming.
I would definitely expect, unless this guy has already won the job. I don't know, but I would definitely expect, just with his pedigree that he's had in the NFL, practice squad bouncing around, and then with the XFL, I definitely expect the Vikings either to draft a guy late or identify another guy in free agency or pick up an undrafted guy. There could even be a few guys. That's definitely as fluid that the kicking position has been since Greg Joseph signed, and even then before, since Dan Bailey. So it'd be cool. John Parker Romo seems like anytime you say a guy's first, middle, and last name, which I'm assuming it is here, and not just like his last name being Parker Romo, kind of gives you some serial killer vibes, which I don't know anything about this dude. That is totally unfair. But
what if his first name is John Parker?
Maybe it might be. I
mean, what if he's related to Tony Romo?
That would be kind of cool.
That would be cool.
And then we get some CBS games, and there we go. I feel like we'd have heard about that, though. But it would be kind of funny to say, he murdered that kick.
We need to move on from that.
Yeah, anyways.
We need to move on from that. The Vikings have murdered some contracts.
I love the way this transition's going.
It's not a good one. But there have been some departures.
Yeah.
They've left.
Yeah, obviously they lost Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, which the Falcons are apparently under some investigation for tampering, which I think is totally fair. I don't know how you can write up and agree to an entire contract in less than an hour or two.
I texted you. I had a theory that perhaps Kirk Cousins spilled the beans in his very first interview, very first press conference with the Falcons, spilled the beans that he had contact with Falcons staff prior to the official legal tampering window. Let me back up. I think the NFL brought all of this upon themselves by creating a legal tampering window, because tampering is tampering. Mm-hmm. It's illegal.
Well, it's negotiation. That's all it really is.
So then call it a legal negotiation.
I think that's what it is called. It's just, the media has been like, it's legal tampering.
Media spun it into something that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
They never do that. Anyways, I wonder if it was a little nod of the cap to the Vikings, because it could turn into a draft pick for the Vikings. If the league decides to come down hard on the Falcons and penalize them, it won't affect Kirk Cousins really at all.
I mean, so the quote unquote punishment that's been going around is that the Falcons could be, usually when the league punishes a team, they just did this to the 49ers today because of a clerical error in their salary cap computation. The 49ers made some math errors, which apparently were totally innocent. They didn't know that they were making any errors, but they basically calculated their salary cap wrong. And because of that, they forfeited their 5th round pick in 2025, and then the NFL made them move their 4th round pick to the end of the 4th round. So when the NFL punishes teams, it's usually monetarily or with draft picks or some version of both. Mm-hmm. So people are saying they can rip the 49ers, the Falcons' 8th overall pick and give it to the Vikings. I highly doubt, highly doubt that would happen. At the most, they would, make the Falcons lose a pick and maybe a first round and maybe even this year's first round, but they would definitely not give it to the Vikings. I don't see any version of Falcons punishment that the Vikings would directly benefit because of it, other than maybe if the Falcons lost their first round pick, that would mean the Vikings' 11th pick would
turns into the 10th.
It would have fewer picks in front of it. So
sure.
They're not going to get the Falcons' 8th overall pick. I will eat a shoe on this podcast if the Falcons had to give their 8th overall pick to the Vikings.
I'm just saying, it seems interesting. I also saw something that made it seem like the Patriots are kind of colluding is the wrong word because it has a negative connotation, but it almost it seemed like whoever was suggesting this seemed to think that the Patriots were helping the Vikings in some way. Oh, yeah. Did you see that tweet too?
Yeah, and I wish I saw who had it, but the theory is hey, what if the Patriots really were demanding an extra 3rd round pick from the Vikings or 2nd round pick for next year, and for this upcoming draft, the 3rd overall pick, and the Vikings were like, okay, well, we don't want to do that, and the Patriots are like, well, what if we sign this guy, then you get another comp pick, and then it doesn't hurt as bad. That's some next level thought that. I mean, people are smart enough to do that. The Patriots are widely known for, Bill Belichick manipulating to his advantage and within rules that comp pick scenario. So I don't know. I'd be a little surprised. I'm not going to eat any shoes over it, though.
Well, another big departure is KJ Osborne, and he signed a contract yesterday, I believe, with the Patriots, and that's some news. And that could be part of this whole scheme, could be because the Vikings will receive a 3rd round compensatory pick next year.
I think so. And I think there's a whole formula that nobody really knows. It's just people guess based off of previous years. But if that's what people are saying on the internet, I'll trust other people more because I know I don't know anything about it. So sure, we'll go with that.
It was just interesting to me. And I'm not one to get super big into conspiracy theories, but when I see a good one, I definitely I scratch my chin a little bit. I'm like, huh, that could be interesting.
I feel like the NFL is pretty shrewd enough that if like the league could prove that another team signed a player just to give that player's former team a comp pick so that team could then trade it or another pick to the team signing the player to make a bigger deal easier to do. I feel like the NFL would not be happy about that. And they would either punish people or if it was within rules, if you're not technically breaking rules, the NFL is also good at changing rules to make things a little bit, I don't know, more fair to the entire league or more vanilla to the entire league. I don't know. In a world where they could prove the Patriots signed KJ Osborne so the Vikings could get a better pick to send it or another one to the Patriots, the NFL would do something about it. I believe. But I mean, if it worked out, it worked out.
Well, maybe it's just a matter of Kwesi and whoever's now making those decisions in New England know the rules better than everyone else and
maybe
manipulated them better.
That's another aspect of this. I guess whoever is the GM in New England is the interim GM. So how much power does an interim GM have, especially during draft time? Do they have more because the owner's like, I need somebody in here to do it? Or do they have less because the owner just says, no, you're not going to be here in 5 weeks, or I don't know if you're going to be here in 5 weeks. You're not going to dictate moves that will affect the franchise for years to come. I don't know.
I would guess Robert Kraft is probably not like giving this guy a super long leash.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's probably not Jerry Jones either.
Yeah.
He's probably not. I mean, Jerry Jones is effectively the GM.
Yeah, I think he is. Like the Cowboys don't have a GM because Jerry Jones fills that role.
Well, and prior to Bill Belichick leaving in New England, he was the coach and the GM. So, right? Like he was making those decisions.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. That's the whole point. I think that's why he's not the coach of the Falcons right now, is because he wanted to continue having full control over any team that he's the coach of. And that's a tough thing to get, no matter who you are. Other departures, not to belittle that, all that to say, KJ Osborne, he's a Patriot.
Yes,
good for him. Good luck to him.
Yep.
Didn't work out with the Vikings.
Good dude.
Austin Schlotman, I'm actually a little upset about this because he filled in very well to the point that you didn't feel like you had a backup center in there. And good for him for getting a contract with the Giants. He signed with the Giants. It's not like a big tens of millions of dollars. I don't even know how much he signed for. He might also be a backup there, but he has played well enough to earn a good amount of money in the NFL. And for him, I'm happy. For the Vikings, I'm a little sad because he played well. While you look up what he got, Dean Lowry, he's gone. I'm surprised. No, Dean Lowry is not the one that signed with the Lions. That was Marcus Davenport. Either way, they cut Dean Lowry, saved some cap. Kyrus Tonga, another defensive tackle for the Vikings, he signed with the Cardinals. Tonga's another guy that when he came in, at least we didn't say how bad he was, so I don't know how good he played, but he probably could have re-signed, but it didn't fit. Some ones that hurt. DJ Wanham, I really wanted him back. He was starting to be on fire until the injury.
Yes.
The Patriots signed him. Really good for him. I wish they would have figured out a way to bring him back. Dustin Baker had a really good thought on him that before the trade deadline, he was thinking the Vikings might go out and try to find another edge rusher, another DJ Wanham guy, but then DJ Wanham started playing so well that he probably made it so the Vikings didn't have to sign anybody. So good for him. He's with the Panthers. Hopefully he does well. Daniil Hunter, this one hurts, but it makes sense money-wise. He's going to the Texans. It'll be weird to see him in another uniform. But yeah, that one sucks. Did you find Schlotman's contract?
There's nothing out there, at least not that I can find in a quick cursory search that, I mean, for all intents and purposes on Pro Football Reference and Over the Cap, he's still a Viking. So obviously that's not true, but there's no information about his contract with the Giants. I agree with you. Danielle Hunter hurts. I think we knew that was happening. We knew that was coming. The writing had been on the wall for a long time. I think DJ Wanham hurts more.
Maybe,
because he could have been kind of the next guy into that edge rush. He'd been playing well. He complimented Danielle Hunter so well. And then he got hurt, and now he's a Panther. Also, I'm really going to miss Paul Allen. DJ Wanham. Every time he gets a sack, that was so much fun to listen to.
I just guess the Panthers want him more than the Vikings did.
Probably true. The Panthers should want a lot of people because
they wanted DJ. They won them more than the Vikings did.
Oh, I see what you did there.
That's such a bad joke. I actually saw that somebody
we
make
need
that
to get a chalkboard somewhere in here of all the times one of us make a joke and the other one doesn't get it right away, and you'd get a mark for that one today.
Well, either way, the Vikings didn't want him anymore, so he's a Panther. That's not my joke. I saw that on Twitter. Jordan Hicks, he's a Brown. That sucks, but he'll probably retire a Brown. He was a really good fringe free agent signing a couple of years ago. Turned out to play really nicely for the Vikings last season, even with those missed games for that pretty big injury. We already talked about Alex Madison, but I think I kind of want to talk about this big trade. We briefly mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
But the Vikings acquired another first round pick, and it didn't seem to cost a whole lot.
No. And I think the implications are with the trade that they're going to move up in the first round.
Yeah.
In a month.
I would expect to.
Right.
So yeah, the Vikings, they have their own 11th overall pick. And then they acquired the Texans' 23rd overall pick. And to get that, they sent over this year's second round pick, which was the 42nd overall pick. Also this year's 6th round pick, which was 188. Excuse me. And then also next year's second round pick. So they paid a 6th and next year's 2nd to turn this year's 2nd into a 1st. Which if you look at it that way, it makes me feel even a lot better. And you can kind of look at, because the Vikings signed a couple of Texans in free agency. The Texans, obviously, they got Danielle Hunter from the Vikings. You can kind of look at it as one big trade, which I think if you do that, makes you feel even better about it for the Vikings, really for everybody overall. But if you look at it that way, the Vikings sent a 2nd, a 6th, another 2nd, Danielle Hunter, and they received a 1st, a 7th, and then Jonathan Grenard and Blake Cashman, 2 guys that may end up starting for the Vikings.
Yeah.
So you're looking at, if that first round pick turns into a starter, or they use that to get a higher first round pick, half of a starter, you're looking at 2.5 starters for a couple of a second round pick, a lower pick, 2 second round picks, a lower pick, and then Danielle Hunter, which is, I mean, pretty good. I think overall that kind of a big deal works out really for both teams.
Do you think, this is kind of a small offshoot of this conversation, but do you think Danielle Hunter ultimately finds his way into the Ring of Honor at US Bank Stadium?
For the Vikings? I mean, just based off numbers, it's definitely not impossible. I mean, I could definitely see that happening.
I would get behind it.
Oh, I would too. If they said that, I would. I mean, not that putting somebody in the Ring of Honor costs anything or takes anything away from your team. So it's not like we paid a first round pick to get this guy in the Ring of Honor. No, but I think he's deserving. He has been a loyal Viking. There's been a few bumps between him advocating for fair pay for himself a few times in his career. And then also he's had a couple seasons where he's had a bunch of injuries, but really just like stretches of 2 seasons overall. But overall, he's been a really good Viking. And for what was he, a 3rd round pick? That's, I mean, That's really good. And he's been another guy that the marketing team has put out there in the past. He's another guy we've never heard publicly of any issues. Again, he's not one we've ever heard. Danielle Hunter got arrested. Like, he's always been a good player, somebody you can buy your kids his jersey. Publicly never complained about anything, and on the field always performed. I could see Ring of Honor for sure.
Yeah, great guy, great player. He will definitely be missed. But I like how you broke down what the Vikings got kind of in replacement of him. And I think, honestly, the Texans are getting a really good player for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the Vikings get a lot of flexibility, and they still got a couple of good players. Not, I wouldn't say amazing, great, probably not.
I think Grenard, he will be. I had never really heard of him until free agency day when he was announced he was going to sign with the Vikings. I think he has the potential to turn into a guy that PA. And there's Grenard. Like, he's going to have something that he says, and I'm here for it.
It's the second Paul Allen impersonation we've tried to do, and we've both fallen short horribly.
Right in the comments, who did a better PA impression?
No offense. No, you definitely did.
That was terrible. No, I don't know. I really hope PA never hears either of our impressions. But Grenard could turn into a Pro Bowl type player. Blake Cashman, he's like a Minnesota favorite. He's from Eden Prairie.
He's from Eden Prairie. Went to the University of Minnesota.
He bounced around. It's kind of cool. I've known of his name just because I do listen to K-Fan. I'm more aware of Minnesota sports than really anything. So I've definitely heard Blake Cashman's name for a long time. But yeah, I mean, the big deal, which is just a bunch of other deals, the big deal between the Texans and the Vikings really, I think, ultimately worked out for both teams.
I think so. And I think it puts the Vikings in a position to go get their guy at quarterback, right?
Absolutely. Because I would be very upset at this point unless some crazy stuff happened on draft day and the Vikings lucked into a player that at 11 that you didn't think would ever be there at 11. But I fully expect, I think most fans and people in the building fully expect the Vikings to package 11 and 23 and then maybe whatever else, hopefully not next year's first, but 11 and 23 to be able to move up into the higher picks, whether it's 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 3 or 5 is probably more likely to get your quarterback of the future. And even then, if you think about that pick, to gain the 23rd overall pick, you essentially gave up 2 seconds. Like, yeah, you gave up that 6, but oh well, the 6th round pick's not ever going to make the team on a major basis anyways, unless their name is Tom Brady. It doesn't hurt because theoretically you might not have to give up next year's first round pick, which before you got that 23rd overall pick, yeah, we kind of all expected the Vikings to try to move up, but that was assuming they were giving up next year's first round pick. Whereas now you could move up, draft a quarterback, and if he turns out to be awful, then theoretically you're also drafting high next year and could maybe draft a new quarterback next year.
Could be.
Your printer just went to life and it scared the crap out of me.
Somebody's printing something.
Oh, man.
You know who owns that number 3 pick?
That's the Patriots.
It's the Patriots.
Although I did see on Twitter not too long ago from an aggregate site or an aggregate page that has been known to not always be totally right. They did say something to the tune of, yeah, the Patriots are for sure sticking and people within the organization are saying they're not trading it. But you can't, even if the GM or coach says that right now, you can't believe anything. Kwesi just said within the last week or two that, yeah, the Vikings have flexibility. We might not have to draft a quarterback. Like, come on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've already talked about that, right? Like, that goes back to one of our first talking points tonight. Like, Sam Darnold is not the answer at quarterback. We know that.
Yeah. And I would bet Sam Darnold starts at least one game this year.
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, but that's the definition of a bridge quarterback. You start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even half the season to get the young rookie acclimated to the system, acclimated to playing pro football, And, the Vikings may not win a ton of games this year. That's okay. You get by with what you can. You throw the new guy in, the rookie in, halfway down the road, let him kind of get acclimated to real game time scenarios. Mm-hmm. And then you hope for the best in 2025.
That's the dream.
Right. So there's a lot of crazy stuff coming up in just the NFL world in general. I mean, We're coming up on the draft. Obviously, free agency is still humming along at a pretty good clip. And
I mean, guys are even signing still today.
Yeah, and I mean, we may have a few more to talk about next week. I don't think anything groundbreaking will happen. That doesn't seem to be in the works right now, but you never know. I mean, Kwesi could have all of us just right where he wants us, and then boom.
I mean, Kwesi was on Paul Allen's radio show to start the show off today, that being Monday the 18th. And apparently, PA, he mentioned something like, everything going okay? I heard there was a closed-door meeting with you guys. That's why you were a couple of minutes late to the start of the show. And Kwesi just kind of laughed it off like, there's always stuff going on. I'm always burning the candle at both ends of the stick right now. So you never know. I kept an eye on Twitter this whole time we've been recording just to see if we could break some news on a pre-recorded podcast. But nothing so far. One more thing about the Texans. I've been kind of thinking, like, why would they make that trade to give the Vikings a first round pick? Because that single trade, if you don't look at the other free agent signings between the two teams, to me it kind of seems like it leans the way towards the Vikings winning that trade as of right now. And it just seems like, why would they do that? But then I thought today, like last year, they had the second and third overall picks back to back because they traded up for the third pick. And with those picks, they hit home runs, which kind of took some pressure off. They made the playoffs with a rookie head coach, and that whole franchise seems to be on the up and up.
And a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, rookie quarterback, rookie head coach, and then outside linebacker edge, I think it's Will Anderson, who they got third overall.
Yeah.
When those are two big positions on a football team, is quarterback obviously the biggest, and then your defense, where you can really make a statement with a really good, I think it was rookie offensive player of the year and rookie defensive player of the year, like both of them they had on their team. So I think you're not as desperate to make the perfect pick in the first round when you're set up with the way that the Texans are right now. They seem to be on the up and up. So I really think they gained value and spread out value between a second this year and a second next year in being able to build their team long term when you hit home runs on your coach, your quarterback, and a defensive cornerstone defensive player. So that's why I think the Texans were moved to be able to make that trade. And now the Vikings have a lot of pressure on them because they have you could argue, good head coach. I'm going to say a good GM, and the defense is okay. Offense is pretty stacked. You just need to get that quarterback.
Yep. And hopefully they can use these picks to negotiate their way into, I would hope, a top 5 and get your guy. Yeah.
Draft day will be exciting because at this point I don't expect the Vikings to trade up in the draft with those two picks until really, after Chicago has taken Caleb Williams. I think that's going to say a lot. Whatever Washington does, obviously whatever New England does, that's going to say a lot. And the first half hour to 40 minutes of draft night could really dictate what the Vikings franchise looks for the next upwards of a decade.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy to think, but I don't think that's, I don't think that's hyperbole. I think it's a true statement.
I agree with you. And I think the Bears kind of tipped their hand this week by trading Justin Fields. Like,
for pennies.
If it's ever been more obvious that they were going to stay at number 1 and take a quarterback, I mean, it's right there in front of everybody's face. So hard to deny that that's what they're going to do.
I think their current quarterback one is his name Tyson Bagent, who started a few games and actually looked arguably
okay.
better than Justin Fields.
He looked okay. He didn't look bad. I talked to a Bears fan today who was not happy about the trade. He wanted them to negotiate a little bit more and try to get a little more value out of Justin Fields, but I think the value wasn't there, right?
They could have kept him and waited, because I guess I don't know his contract and if he would have cost more on a given day unless they got rid of him before then. But theoretically, they could have kept him into training camp, because, I mean, what if Baker Mayfield breaks his leg? What if a Kirk Cousins type person tears their Achilles in training camp?
Yep.
Like, people will be desperate. I mean, we saw what the Vikings did when Teddy Bridgewater, his knee disintegrated a week before the first game of the season. They sent a first round pick to the Eagles to get Sam Bradford.
Yep.
You can't bank on that. You can't know, like, okay, we're going to keep Justin Fields until whatever. But you're probably always going to be able to get at least a 6th round pick, which is what they got for him, for Justin Fields, which, if you think about it, the Vikings sent a 6th round pick and a conditional 7th round pick to the Cardinals for Josh Dobbs. And the Steelers sent a 6th round pick, which could become a 4th round pick. So it's a little bit different, but essentially the Bears could get the same thing for Justin Fields as the Cardinals got for Josh Dobbs, which is awesome. I love that so much.
It is kind of laughable. I think Ryan Poles will either turn out to be brilliant or the laughing stock of the league.
Yeah, I don't know why you get rid of, like you said, I don't know why you get rid of Justin Fields
when
right
you
now.
Do. Yes.
Because you don't have to. He doesn't cost anything. And again, his contract may have triggered some multiple millions of dollars, something today. I don't know enough about that. But as far as I know, it doesn't hurt to keep him until training camp, until the first week or two of the season.
Here's what I do know. We're not a Bears podcast. We are a Vikings podcast, unashamedly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to resurrect this. We need to bring it back. And we also drink beer.
We do.
And maybe that's how we end this today.
And we're both getting pretty low, so I think we both kind of liked it. What'd you think?
I like it. As I got into it, it didn't really occur to me that it was heavy on the coffee and light on the beer.
Yeah.
That was my first impression, was like, whoa, like we're drinking cold brew coffee here. But as we got into it and as I had a few, I like it. It was good. Again, not something that I would reach for every single time. But I could see myself having one of these on occasion.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Nitro, I'm surprised at how much I do like the Nitro beers. Especially with them being cookies and cream, coffee, those types of beers that I wouldn't normally reach for.
I didn't have this opinion when I first tried it, but now I do, that the Nitro, I think, kind of smooths out the coffee.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'd mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned it at the beginning of our episode or on our TikTok, but I mentioned that you and I had a coffee stout together when we were in college, probably. And we both kind of agreed, like, yeah, not really our thing. Maybe would have one every once in a while. But here we are, and we've had a few. And I don't know. I think the Nitro helps with that. I think it kind of levels things out, smooths it out, and makes it a little more of an easy drinker.
Yeah, for sure.
That's where I'm at.
I agree. Excuse me. I like it. I will have more. Yeah. Good job, No Coast. Thank you for making these.
And we've got the No Coast S'mores Nitro on hand, ready to go. So possibly in the next episode, if not the next one, definitely soon, because beer doesn't sit forever. Yeah. But it's right here in the mini fridge behind Austin, and it'll stay cold until we're ready to enjoy it.
Yep.
It'll be good. We should call that the Skol Fridge. That's
Skol
what it
Fridge.
is.
Skol anything.
It's the Skol
Skol
Fridge.
Cave, the Skol Fridge.
The Skol Bar.
The Skol Bar. I like the headquarters, though. I don't know. We need a name. Skol Bar probably sounds better.
Well, we like this setup because we think it feels like if you grabbed your favorite beverage, whether it's a beer or something else, we feel like you can just step right on up to the bar and have a conversation with us. And that's why we're here. So drop us a comment, whether you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. Maybe you're listening to us on some podcast type of outlet somewhere. I think we're in a lot of places.
Podcatchers, I think, is what they're called.
Podcatchers, yeah. I like Overcast. I don't know if you've ever used that one, but that's my preferred podcast player. It's pretty good. Spreaker.
I like Spreaker.
Spreaker's good too. Yeah, I've used that before.
We're there too. We're even on TikTok. You can see our setup on TikTok.
Yep.
We have one video right now that's kind of blowing up a little bit. It's got a 250,000 views at this point.
So you make a lot of those videos, not all of the ones that we put on TikTok, but most of them are definitely your thing. And you found a little niche. You like to take pleasure in other people's pain.
I thought I was the only one that once, if I'm watching a sporting event and somebody goes down, the second the announcer says something to the tune of like, "Oh, and we're not going to show that replay. It's too gruesome." The first thing I do is go up Twitter, YouTube, Google, trying to find video of like this horrific injury for this poor athlete that just had the next year of their life, if not more, ruined because of some terrible leg break or ACL tear or whatever. I think there was a Bears tight end one time that his knee just literally like went on a swivel. It's crazy. But currently we did catch the Florida Gators, I think sophomore basketball player, and I'm forgetting his name. But yeah, he went up for a ball or for a rebound, came down and broke his leg, potentially in 2 places. Currently 271,000 views on that one. So if you're interested in seeing a slightly slow-mo 15-second video of that, check out our TikTok, just the Skol Hop. We've got a couple more injury videos, which is not funny, but it's kind of interesting that people seem to like those videos. So I'm not the only one that likes those gruesome videos. There's something wrong with me, and there's something wrong with a lot of us. You can be a Skol Hopper if you like those.
Well, and I don't know that it has anything to do with liking that sort of thing, but it's just like this need for information. Like, what happened? I gotta see it.
It's like a gruesome curiosity.
Yes, and you've done a good job of capturing that.
We've got a couple of those,
putting those out there. So yeah, that's not our only content on TikTok, but it is definitely some of our content out there. So go and check that out. And we've got some other stuff out there as well. You can follow us there. We're pretty much everywhere, right? TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I'd say we're probably the most active on Twitter.
Probably.
TikTok.
Consistently active.
And
we got a website too, the skolhop.com.
Yeah, skolhop.com.
So you can find us. And we're starting to put together a little giveaway. So keep your eyes and ears open.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to have a giveaway, something where you share out our information and you're going to be entered for a giveaway. But yeah, a little Skol Hop giveaway. That's coming soon.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, it's a good conversation.
Good beer.
Good beer. Till next time.
Skol.
Skol.
Nice. Yes. That was it. That's what I want. That's what I picture every time.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures. Step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop. Skol.